Is it rolling? Yes. Hey everyone, I'm back with another video for you all, and I just wanted to talk about fame, right? Now, fame can come a very, very long way, and there's so many good examples of famous individuals on this planet that have left a huge impact on society all over the world. And I always thought that was so cool to me because imagine being this awesome person who did something great for this world and you're remembered for generations and generations beyond and beyond, right? You know, look at Martin Luther King, right? MLK was an individual who did the impossible at the time, right? Because during his period of life, that was the norm, which is like really disgusting. That's like a whole nother video I need to make. Just kind of like reflecting on human history because human history is not pretty. It is very, very disgusting and it's very sad the amount of distraught people had to go through. Anywho, you know, the Jim Crow era, right? Where black people were just treated so poorly, which breaks my heart, you know, because a lot of people thought, like, oh, when Abraham Lincoln ended slavery, it was gonna be like a better life. And to a degree, that kind of was the case, but not really, because it's like, well, yeah, slavery didn't exist as in free labor, but you still had, you know, this mentality of like with white people where they were like, oh, well, we're better, right? Which is not true. Everyone's equal. So, you know, black people had the like bad water fountains. They had to sit at the back of the bus, hence Rosa Parks. They they had the worst education, they had the worst neighborhoods, worst living conditions, etc., etc. So Martin Luther King, you know, a black man, he just felt so tired and sick of it. So he was like, you know what? I'm gonna put my foot down and I am going to make a difference. And man, oh man, did he make a difference, to the point where American culture just changed instantly and simultaneously with his I Have a Dream speech, which is still a speech that we all hear to this very day, you know? So, even though Martin Luther King is no longer with us, Martin Luther King left a big impact on the world because people will never forget him. I mean, we have a holiday dedicated to Martin Luther King Day to where no one goes to school or work. And you know, it's just because we take a moment to thank Martin Luther King and appreciate him for stepping forward and just like expressing like, hey, you know, this isn't right, which is true. It isn't right. And you know, unfortunately, racism still exists, which I mean, I think racism is never gonna go away. Like, I know that sounds negative, but it's just reality. But we can be better as a society and we can raise our like future children, you know, to love everyone equally. Like, bad people are bad people, good people are good people, but not necessarily like, oh, like, don't hate on a specific race, right? Because I do know sometimes parents will raise their kids that way, and it's like, to a degree you can kind of like blame them because like when you're your own person, you kind of have morals, right? Like, you know what's right from wrong, but it is a lot harder to kind of stray away from it when your parents like actively taught you like, hey, this is a no-no, you know, versus, oh, like, my parents are going to teach me good, so I'm going to like go a good path. Does that make sense? um But you have Martin Luther King, and to kind of move forward from like more negative like history moments, William Shakespeare, right? William Shakespeare, his work is so iconic. And something that's so cool about William Shakespeare is that he was in the 1500s. I don't remember exactly what timeline, but like it was way before the 2000s were even about, During his timeline, there was no electricity, there was no they were like very, what's the word I'm looking for? They were very dated, in terms of technology, in terms of innovations. And William Shakespeare was a phenomenal writer for his time, and he still is considered to be a phenomenal writer. But William Shakespeare created very, very, very good stories, with one of his like most famous stories being Romeo and Juliet, which is, analyzed profusely. It's constantly taught in schools. It's had so many different adaptations and parodies. Like who doesn't know Romeo and Juliet? It's like probably the most iconic romance story, and it's probably on top of that, just like when you think of like the romance genre, you think Romeo and Juliet, right? So William Shakespeare is so famous and it's so talented that despite his work being created decades upon, or even centuries, centuries ago, it's still alive to this very day, and everyone remembers who William Shakespeare is, and everyone loves his work. People watch the movies, people read the play, people watch the plays, so like even though William Shakespeare is like 6 feet underground, he's still loved to this day. I mean, see, that's cool. That is cool. Like, even when you died, your work is still being appreciated. And the same goes for Vincent van Gogh. And Vincent van Gogh is also a different case because, at least with William Shakespeare, William Shakespeare was alive during, or I'm sorry, he was famous during the time he was alive. But Vincent van Gogh, during his entire lifespan, he was never famous. He was unknown to people. Um, no one knew who he was. No one cared for him, and he was like a very depressed person. You know, like it's implied that he killed himself. I think I don't remember exactly, but anywho, Vincent Van Gogh passes away, and at some point his art starts getting recognition, but then it becomes to the point where like Vincent van Gogh is just considered to be like one of the best artists to ever come into existence, and his work is so famous now. I mean, who doesn't know Starry Night? And his work is like so valuable, like millions upon millions, which I think is really cool because during his timeline, he didn't think anything of it. I mean, he would sell his paintings for like really cheap prices, like, oh, like, give me that apple and I'll give you this painting. Like, he really didn't care about the value. He just cared more about, like, oh, I want to put my spirit out there, right? Um, and one of the coolest things about Vincent van Gogh as well is that he was very talented for like his time period because apparently like Starry Night, like I forgot exactly like the science behind it, but supposedly like the stars that he draws in that particular painting are like exactly aligned or something, like it's like the exact spots that the stars were actually present. So it's not like he kind of just like drew it like randomly, like he actually drew, like that drawing is an actual depiction of like what he was seeing, to the point where like the moon and stars were even like aligned perfectly to what day he made that painting or night, which I think is really cool. Um, Another person as well is I guess you could say Princess Diane. You know, she was like one of the most kindest rulers in history. I mean, she, you know, during the HIV scare, she did not care. You know, she didn't have this mentality of like, oh, I'm gonna get um sick or I'm gonna contract this disease, which I mean, to be fair, is not exactly a bad like it's not exactly like a bad concern to have. Like, I don't think that makes you a bad person because, like, it's kind of like with COVID, right? Like, during the COVID pandemic, everyone was scared for their lives. So it's kind of like the same principle. But, you know, she was like there with her people. You know, she was there comforting them. She would hug them. She would hold their hands. I mean, she really, like, she was honestly really awesome. And it's unfortunate because, you know, she died so young and she died in a car crash and it was just so unexpected, you know, but she left an impact for sure. You know, big time, big time. And see, there's like so many more examples I can think of, but the whole ideology behind this video is that I pray and hope to God that I can leave a positive and big impact on this world, like how these amazing individuals have. You know, because I mean, a lot of these people came from nothing. You know, I mean, at one point in their life, they're just ordinary people. And I mean, the same can apply to you too. You know, like right now, you're this ordinary person, but little do you know, like you could become this like super famous person and like someone who like contributes like something super massive to society, you know? But anything is big, like any contribution is big in my book. Like if you donate to charity, like even if you donate $1 or even if you share that charity on your social media, I mean that alone is such a amazing big step. In the same principle as like someone who like donates $1 million to charity, because at the end of the day, a donation is a donation, and like anything that is donated, you know, is like such a big contribution to like whatever the case may be, whatever the charity is, right? Because it accumulates and it adds up, and then boom, they reach their goal, you know. But yeah, you know, I don't know what exactly it is that I'm going to contribute to society, in a positive manner. Like, I don't know what, but all I know is that it's going to be awesome, it's going to be positive, it's going to be wholesome, and it's going to leave a big, big positive impact in the world to where people know my name in like centuries and centuries from now. You know, whether I might be in textbooks, I might be taught in school. Um, I just know I'm gonna get there one day. And even if I'm 6 feet underground and I might not be aware of what's going on, I'm just glad that I got to actually contribute something to our world and society for once, and something that can like just benefit everyone and something that I can be remembered for fondly.